Cheech, Sammy Gravano, and Angelo Ruggiero sitting in a Cadillac. Of course it didn't come to me. Listen, here's the story. There was a guy who owned a cigarette company. I can't tell you the name, but we can call it N1. So the owner of the N1 company had a couple of union problems. And he came to Don Paul Castellano to take care of his problems. And of course, Don Paul knew a guy who knew the head of the union, so he talked to him. What did he want in return? Well, nothing. He did him a favor. But here's the thing. When a mafia boss does you a favor, you have to pay the favor back. And since Paul Castellano was obsessed with creating a legit business at that time, he asked for a taste. The taste came in for something like 6 months, and it was great. We're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. But suddenly, the guy refused to pay. And when Paul Castellano sent Tommy Bloody to talk to him to see what's wrong with him, here's what he told Tommy Bloody. See, Paul Castellano did me a favor, I paid this favor back, and we're even. Fair enough, right? Paul Castellano did him a favor, the guy returned a favor. Paul Castellano made thousands of dollars. Fair. Not fair. See, we're not banks, we're not prostitutes. You don't pay us to do things. We ain't no prostitutes. Paul Castellano ain't a prostitute. He did you a favor. We're like a family. He did you a favor, you gotta pay the favor back. But if you promised him a taste, you gotta keep that promise. The only one who can decide when to cut the taste off is Paul Castellano himself. But it's not alright, because if you let a guy walk with that, there are gonna be others. Others and others and others. And before you know it, you become a prostitute. Neil Della Croce paid us a visit in Bronx. Paul Castellano set up a meeting with a couple of capo regimes, a couple of maid members. He wanted something done about it. And let me make it clear, Paul Castellano didn't like me. He didn't like me, I didn't like him. But he was the boss. I was a maid member. I respected him like a father. I did what he told us to do. Turns out Neil, who was like a brother to me, negotiated Paul Castellano for me to come to that meeting. Of course, Paul Castellano didn't want me involved into big shot operations. We effed up the James McBradley here. But Neil Della Croce negotiated with him. It was the underboss. And he asked Paul Castellano for me to be there. And it was the first time I officially met this guy. A real gangster, a movie star, a real Cosa Nostra guy, a man of the old manners. Everybody liked him. Sammy, the Bull, Gravano. Sammy was a tough guy, and there was something special about Sammy. Sammy had a big brain for big shot operations. That's why Paul Castellano liked him, as well as Don Carlo Gambino and Neil Della Croce. It was a dark room, yellow lights, and Paul Castellano wearing his glasses, sitting at the top of the table. He was wearing a custom-made three-piece suit, and it was navy blue, I guess. God, I always had a thing for the suits. He was smoking a cigarette. Sitting beside Paul Castellano was Neil Della Croce, and beside Neil Della Croce was Sammy. Sammy was wearing a black leather jacket. He was silent as it could be, reading everybody with his blue eyes. He was a shark. Paul Castellano put a cigarette off and starts talking. I want you to know this ain't a heist. We're not stealing anything from anybody. I want you to remember, we're teaching this guy a lesson. We all not. Paul Castellano lets up another cigarette, points to Neil Della Croce. Neil starts talking. January 13th, there are gonna be 3 trucks filled with cigarettes leaving the factory for exportation purposes. And they're gonna be shipped to Europe. That's why the trucks are gonna go. Cheech was sitting at the other side of the table. He said, they're going south. Exactly, they're going south. We know who the 3 drivers are gonna be. Paul Castellano coughed, and I want Sammy to take care of them. You see, Sammy had a pretty straightforward technique when it came to negotiation. Whether it was the judge, the jury, the truck driver. Here's how it worked for Sammy. Sammy showed up to the guy with a bag full of money. Showed the guy the money, paid him 1/3 or 1/4 of the money, and asked him what he wanted them to do. And of course, he had to show them the pistol to know what happens to them if they refuse to do it, or they do it wrong, or anybody understands anything about the operation going on. It was a pretty straightforward technique. Politician way. We were playing chess. The night came. It was me, Cheech, Sammy Gravano, and Angelo Ruggiero sitting in a Cadillac. Sammy was driving it. Cheech was sitting on the passenger seat. We were on the back seat. Angelo was smoking a cigarette. It ain't like the movies. We knew exactly who the truck drivers were. We knew exactly when trucks left the factory. Gravano knew the timings. We had to be there a certain time. So we headed south. We started to see 3 trucks on the side of the road. And that was them. Sammy pulled up. He got out of the car. So did I and Cheech and Angelo. He went to the first driver. They talked. He passed the key to Sammy. So did the second and the third one. And they asked for the money. Sammy, what happens to our money? Sammy looked at him deep in the eyes and punched him in the fucking face. Oh, would you hit that guy? You gotta pay him. We beat the shit out of them. And then Sammy went to the trunk of his car and brought the money. Nobody's gonna believe it was a heist if they don't have any bruises. Especially the second one. The second guy had blood all over his face. Angelo hit him with the bottom of his pistol. We paid them the money, a little extra for the beating, and we were good to go. I was driving the first truck, and then it was Cheek, and Angelo was driving the third one. Sammy was driving a Cadillac as the escort. We were headed south. There was a junkyard owned by Neil Della Croce where we had to drive the trucks to. We were driving, and I heard a siren. I look at the mirror. Fuck, is that a police car? NYPD, please pull up. I pulled up. So did Cheech and Angelo. I got out of the car. What's wrong, officer? It was 2 a.m. 3 trucks driving a line down the road to south. It was suspicious. Good night, sir. Can I see your driver's file? I was processing it. The driver's file? He said, yes, sir. I went to the truck, searched a little bit. I found it, handed it to the police. He took a look. Mr. James Watts, right? Yes, James Watts it is. He checked the truck, the second one, and the third one. Turns out Angelo was drunk. Because as the officer asked him for the driver's file, he said, driver's file? What the fuck is the driver's file? I don't know about your business, but here's the rule of our business. If a cop shows up, you pay him off. Sammy didn't pull over, the escort. We drove to the junkyard, we arrived. Sammy was not there. We waited there for 10 minutes, and I hear a gunshot.